Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Jabbering Jake Podcast. We are back here with episode 5. And boy, was last week a fun episode. We got to talk about some crazy stories from when I was in high school with my friends. It's particularly my friend Zave. And I mentioned how, one day I would like to have him on here as a guest. And I definitely do. And I think that having guests on the podcast will be a fun thing I definitely want to do at some point in the future after we get some time going on here. And I got thinking into how I could incorporate it because there are so many people that I think would be interesting to have on as guests. It'd be cool to just have a conversation with them, or they'd have some funny input to give to the podcast. And, I was thinking of initially I was thinking like every once in a while I might have a guest in a normal episode, which is what most podcasters do, or they have one every episode. But this is the kind of podcast where, most of the time you'll just be listening to me if you decide to listen to me at all. And, that style of podcast, usually it's like every once in a while maybe that person will have a guest on, if at all. And, I thought, yeah, I could do it that way. It seems to work out for the most part. But, like I said, there's just, a decent number of people I'd like to talk to or have on the podcast. Would be kind of cool. And so, maybe one thing I was thinking of doing was I do the normal episodes like I do every week. And maybe like once a month, I record a bonus episode with a guest. The hurdle then being, I would have to try and make sure that, somebody is available every month, which, I think most people can manage like one meeting a month, for like, if you just tell them it's 30 minutes. But it's, definitely a logistical march. You got to make sure you're consistently doing it. I mean, then again, releasing a weekly episode is a similar type of thing. But here, it's just me. I have a lot more control over myself being able to get here and record each week than getting somebody to be like, hey, you want to talk publicly on a podcast for half an hour once a month? Especially adults. See, that's the thing I've learned about being an adult is nobody has time for anything anymore. And I'm not even married with kids. And a lot of my friends aren't even married with families. But somehow there just seems to be no time for anything anymore. I don't know how that happens. They don't tell you that. Or they do tell you that. But we don't listen. I don't know. Could be one of the things. But I'm here, as usual, in the studio, in the closet. And I've rearranged it a little bit. I've taken some things out because I kind of had some stuff hanging up. And I'm not just talking about the insulation that I stuffed into pillowcases to make a more acoustically good environment for when I try and, just do my hobby of voice acting. I say it as if I've done any of it at all. I still haven't really dipped my toes in because, like I said, no time, which is really just an excuse where I'm just not, let's be honest, I don't organize my time well. I don't manage my time well at all, very well at all. And, there's several things I could blame that on, right? One would be, the amount of time I it's like 2 hours out of my day at least each day going to the gym. But I'm not going to cut that out because I'm really seeing progress and I'm enjoying it and I'm having fun and it's something my brother and I do together. Or it could be the fact that I have 4 dogs, which is about, 3 dogs too many. Okay? No person needs 4 dogs. A family hardly needs 4 dogs. Families usually get maybe 1 dog. Okay, 1 dog, or, if you're going to spend a lot of time with it, playing with it, and giving it attention, if it's like your kid or something, 1 dog. But, if you don't want it to be lonely because you're not going to have as much time for it as it would need, then you get 2 dogs so that they can keep each other company. That's fine. But 4 dogs, way too many. I mean, it's like people that have like 12 kids. It's like, okay, you have no time to, like, your heart doesn't have time to beat. Like, your heart has to schedule appointments. It's like, all right, I'm going to beat on the 5th at 3:27 a.m., and then let's see when the next opening is. Yeah, it's going to be a couple weeks out. Meanwhile, you're running around, dealing with things everywhere. But yeah, I mean, it's so I rearranged the closet is what I'm trying to say, I guess. And it feels less like a coffin and more like a closet now, which is good. I haven't been in enough situations to know whether I'm claustrophobic or not, but I can maybe understand why someone would be claustrophobic. It's the feeling of like not being able to move, and that's kind of how I felt in here. I felt like, I was pretty crushed in, and like I certainly, movement is possible, but I'm in such a small space and I don't have a lot of surface area like to set my equipment on, and I got my mic, and if I bump anything, you hear it and it messes things up, knocks stuff down. So there's that. That's why. And when you're like trying to hold yourself still, because I've had to do it for stuff like long car rides where you have way too much stuff packed in the car or something like that, and just you get sore, your muscles get stiff because you're like constantly, using them to like try and not move. People don't maybe think about not moving as using your muscles, but your muscles do more than just move things. They keep things stable too. But it is still way too hot in here because, insulation and then a small space. So I got my drink with ice here. Got my Gamer Sups. Not sponsored, but man, I would love to be one day. It's just so good. It's like I don't drink coffee, so I drink that instead. I like the flavors better. You can get caffeine and stuff. Or you can get caffeine-free versions. They got all kinds of different flavors. They got cool cups. That's what drew me in, is the cups. And I showed it to my doctor, and I said, "What do you think of this?" And he's like, "Oh, looks great." So there you go. There's a shining endorsement for me. But so let's see. Oh, so somebody had asked me, because I mentioned it in passing quite a few episodes ago, what I was talking about when I said about the car blinker thing in Alabama. So I'm just going to elaborate on that a little bit. So now bear in mind, it's not something that everyone does. In fact, probably I would say most people don't do this. But enough people do it to take note of it. Because the thing is, when I was living in Vermont, the number of times I saw it happen was probably about 0. So if you see it happen, say, 3 or 4 times a week, maybe, and I don't commute very far to work. I mean, I mostly work from home. So I really don't drive that much because I don't need to, because I can work from home. But if I need to go to the grocery store or something like that, right? Or run some errands, I drive in the car. Maybe 5-10 minutes into town. I really don't get out enough. I don't go anywhere. That's on me. But the fact that I see it happen that often, on such a short drive means that it's worth noting. So basically, what will happen sometimes is, this is a thing that can only happen when there is more than one car in front of you. There's a line of at least 2 cars in front of you in traffic. And the car that is in front will be turning onto a different road. And what the person immediately in front of you might do in that situation is turn on their blinker. So let's say the front car is turning right. The car in front of you will put the right blinker on, and then they might not be turning right. They just turn on their blinker to let you know that the person in front of them is turning right or left. And it's something I never saw, and it, of course I was like, what, that's kind of strange. You usually only turn your blinker on if you're turning. And, it's fine. I mean, you get used to it, but it's kind of like catches you off guard the first time it happens. when I actually worked down here in Alabama, I know how this is going to sound. It just sounds like it's a story for the bit. But I promise you, this 100% actually happened. 100% actually happened. I'm not making this up. When I used to work down here, I had quite the commute. Much more of a commute than I do now. It was like almost an hour commute back and forth from work. And I remember one day I was heading home, and there's always traffic because the highway that I take to get home, everyone's taking to get home. You know, everyone in the next county even. So naturally there was a line of traffic in front of me, right? And I distinctly remember these two occurrences on this way home one night where the car in front of me, he turned on his blinker for the car in front of him turning, you know, doing the thing that I just mentioned. Later on in that drive, you know, a while later, maybe 20, 30 minutes, I don't remember, it doesn't really matter. But like later on in this drive, this guy turned off the road himself, you know, turned onto a different road and didn't use his blinker. So this guy put on his blinker earlier to let me know that the guy in front of him was turning. And then later on, he actually turned, did not use his blinker. So that guy is, you know, that's just a that guy thing, I think. You know, but, you know, nothing but love for my friends in Alabama. I mean, the people down here are so nice. You know, I always mention to share the podcast with just, you know, random strangers and people you meet and friends and family, acquaintances, even your enemies. But that's the thing, right, is I was at the bank, right, talking to the loan officer that had helped me get my loan for this house, right? And I told him about my podcast, you know, because I'm trying to get this out there, you know, trying to spread the word. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, no kidding." He said, "Yeah, actually, I'm a bit of a podcast guy. I'll definitely check it out." And then, you know, we were having a conversation stuff. He's like, "You ever been to one of the Alabama football games? We got to get you there sometime. I'm going to take you to one of the games." Now, that is something that you would not very likely see in Vermont. The only way, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like I mean, this is the guy that works at the bank that helped me get a loan on my house, right? I didn't know him before, you know. I just called up their business and said, "Hey, I would like to do business with your business. Can you please give me money so I can buy this house," right? No reason necessarily for, you know, us to be friends or hang out or anything, right? And in Vermont, that would about be it. But the people down here are so friendly. It's like, yeah, you know, we'll have to take you out to a football game or something like that. You know, I mean, the people that my parents bought their house from, we're still friends with and keep in touch with. So it's like it's a cool thing. And like I said, in Vermont, it's not like they're hostile to you. You know, you go borrow money. It's like, "Hey man, how's it going?" It's like, "Hey, listen, let's just talk this loan, all right? No need for the small talk." You know, but it's unlikely that you necessarily would be chatting and being friends with people unless you were already friends beforehand, or unless you as a customer puts the effort in. You know, it's hardly ever I think the bank teller or the loan officer or whatever that's going to be striking up the conversation. Or it could just be me. Maybe I'm just, you know, antisocial. But the point is, I thought it was really cool, you know, and for the record, he is a really cool guy, really friendly, and he helped me so much throughout the process of buying my house. Definitely a great guy. We should go see that football game sometime, hopefully. But yeah, it's a cool thing. I've also seen some. I mean, the weather is something else, though. It's too hot. I mean, that's something I definitely miss about Vermont. Something I would take with me is the cold and the snow. I'm sorry, I hate the heat. I can't handle it. You know, I wasn't made for the hot weather. I've seen a meme, right? Well, so you know, on a summer day, right? When your car's been sitting out in the sun and you go and get into it and it's hot, it feels like you're kind of sitting in an oven, right? It gets that way in Vermont. Well, down here, your car's been sitting out in the sun. You go to sit in it and it's been sitting. If you literally can't breathe for several minutes. Like, you got to get that thing airing out. You got to get, some air circulating. I mean, it is bad. Like, you literally, if you sit in there for 15 to 20 minutes, I mean, you stick a thermometer in you, you're going to have an internal temperature that's like, considered safe by food safety standards. You're getting baked at like 425. And I saw a meme about that where it's like, well, the upside to this Alabama heat in the summer is that a killer's not going to be sitting in your back seat waiting to kill you in your car. And I'm like, yeah, that good point. That is a good way to look at it. But the thing is, people down here are so friendly, right? The killer will probably just be standing out by your car waiting by the back door and is like, hey man, I was going to sit in the back seat and wait for you to get in your car and like stab you and kill you and stuff. But man, like this heat is just, you understand, like I would die if I stayed in there, I'd be like a roast turkey. I'd have an internal temperature of like 165 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever the safe food safety standards is. And I'd be like, yeah, totally get it, man. Hold on just a second. Let me get the AC running and stuff like that. You turn it on, like cool down. It's like, all right, man, hop in, hops in the back seat and stuff like that. And then, you just start chatting. Instead of killing you, you just become friends, right? And you're like, hey, yeah, we'll have to go out and maybe get a beer this weekend or something, or play some Xbox, or, and you're driving along, there's a car in front of you, and they're turning onto a side street, and it says, hey, what are you doing, man? Don't forget to turn your blinker on. He's turning. So there you go. I spent some money on something I really didn't need recently. And that's okay. It wasn't that expensive. It wasn't something like crazy expensive, but I definitely spent some money on something I absolutely didn't need recently. And so here it is. Oops. An oops button. For those situations in your life where, an oops is warranted. This was, some merch sold by a comedian that does a podcast that I like to watch, called Congratulations. And I don't necessarily fall into like, oh, I really want that merch too often, but it just seemed, kind of amusing. So, oops it is. And it's so stupid, but it's also so funny. And I've already used it way more than I should have. So, by the way, this episode, we're kind of going back to our roots a little bit, like I did in the first episode, where, don't get me wrong, I have some stuff written out on a script, or in an outline, I should say, not so much a script. I've had scripts for some of the other ones, but, I'm trying to go a little bit more improv on this, so I don't have to rely on a script every time. I can have some talking points, but I'm trying to, also work up the skill. And I used to have the skill back in high school. I used to give speeches quite a bit, because I was a prefect at my high school, and then also you'd give speeches at morning assembly sometimes, or you'd give different speeches. And, I'm not saying I'm a good liar. I'm not even necessarily a good bullshitter, but I am pretty good at, or I should say, I was pretty good at sometimes making some short speeches off the cuff. And I remember there were a couple of speeches I gave that were like off the cuff that I hadn't written or practiced beforehand. And I was telling the assistant headmaster about that, and he was like, yeah, no, you didn't. He didn't believe me. And I don't blame him for not believing me, but it was the truth. But, it was like when I started to get older, and I'm not, I'm only 25. I'm not old. But also when I think about it, it was like 7 years ago. I was in high school too. But, as I got older, it feels like, some of the skills started to slide a little bit. You get a little bit worse at things. Maybe you get a little, I think in my case, maybe I got a little more insecure about stuff, or you're not practicing everything as rigorously as you were in high school, because you get the freedom of being in college and in the adult world, and then you realize like, oh, hey, I I don't have to work myself to death anymore. And yet I kind of, to some degree, miss that a little bit because, I got some goals and dreams and cool things I want to try out, experiences I want to have. And, if I'm resting on my laurels, I'm not going to ever get a chance to try it out, like this whole podcast thing. This is one of the things I decided to start doing because, it just seemed like a fun hobby to try in my spare time. Because it's a lie, like I said, it's a lie that I don't have spare time. I definitely do. I just am not good at organizing my time. But stuff like this, I definitely do have the time if you just make the time for it, even if you do have 3 too many dogs or maybe 2 too many dogs. But, and hopefully this episode will be up to a bit of a higher caliber than episode 1. If it's the same caliber as episode 1 because I didn't come in too prepared, then yeah, you probably won't. This episode probably won't see the light of day. But if you're hearing it, that means that, we're doing all right. Oh, dude, yeah. So this was another thing, right? Something they didn't tell you about, like when you get a home. All the mail you get that's like so many insurance companies being like, hey, we hear that you're a homeowner now. You need some insurance? Like, I swear, so many letters from insurance companies trying to sell me insurance, even though I already have insurance. And I mean, I already was getting a bunch of letters in the mail, like from credit cards trying to, get me to sign up for their credit card. But it's like, I came to the realization that cleaning out your inbox, like things that people do with their email, cleaning out your inbox has probably been around since like the Pony Express. When they were delivering, when literally they would have these small, light, little guys like riding across the country on horses. They had to be small and light, so that the horses go fast and go along. But when they had, these little dudes on horses literally delivering your mail, right? They'd be going so fast sometimes that they'd have like, it's like the horses were in a relay race and the guy was the baton. And I swear to God, it's like probably just, toss the guy from one horse to the next horse coming up. He's like, all right, you ready, Joe? You ready? Toss the guy over, and the guy's hoping that he sticks the landing with his bag full of letters and he doesn't drop any letters out. And man, you land on that saddle wrong and he gets hit in the nuts, dude. He's like dead. He's probably passed out for the next leg. The horse is like, well, guess I'm on my own. It's like if you fall asleep in your Tesla while it's on autopilot driving you to work or something. And so imagine it's like, right? Imagine you're the guy delivering those letters and you get to the recipient and the guy's like, oh, great. I'm so sick of getting these letters. This is, I don't want these anymore. Send this to my spam folder, and hands it back to the mail carrier. And it's like, wow, came all the way out here for that. All right, well, I guess now we know these ones are marked as spam, and he feeds it to the horse. It's like, back when they were delivering things by carrier pigeon. It's like, oh, yeah, no, those types of messages go to my spam folder, and what that means is the pigeon just drops it in the ocean or something. It's like, you ever hear about those messages in a bottle? When a bottle washes up on the shore with a message in it and stuff, that's just somebody's spam mail from back when they did, carrier pigeon deliveries, amongst all the garbage and plastic that is in the ocean. Was that ever actually a thing? Like message in a bottle? Like, where did that come from? I wonder. Okay, hold on. Let's see. I'm going to try and Google this. Where? Can't type. Such an awkward position. Where do messages? No. in a bottle. I mean, I don't know. It just sounds like actually people found messages wash up on the shore in bottles. And I guess it just happened enough times that it kind of became a thing where people were like, oh, message in a bottle. And maybe it was just these carrier pigeons dropping them in the ocean somewhere. Imagine like ancient Egypt when things were printed on papyrus, right? And I don't even know how they would have delivered, they would have delivered messages back then or something. But it's like, just, I kind of chuckle at the thought of like the level of effort going up for each iteration of this. Like the further you go back, the more effort it is to like make these messages and deliver them to people. Like back, what about like we had cavemen? Like what if when they were chiseling messages into stone tablets, or cavemen painting on the walls, right? Like how do you deliver that? And then you deliver it and it's like, yeah, no, this is spam, man. This is my junk mail. I don't want to see this. I think I would be so mad. I would rather probably them just not tell me and let me think that they actually want it, because at least then I don't know that I made that effort to deliver that message for nothing. It's always the messengers, That's why they had to make up the saying, don't shoot the messenger. Because, like, that guy's just delivering a message from someone, It's like, hey, I'm sorry you're unhappy about this bill, but I'm not the one charging you money. But I realized when I got my last haircut that I have a desk in my house that I also had when I lived up in Vermont. I have a desk in my house that looks like it belongs in a barbershop. The type of table I'm talking about? I mean, not in like a modern day like hair salon, right? Because they're all modern and stuff. I'm talking about like an old-fashioned barbershop that has like the colorful like candy cane looking pole that spins outside. Actually, my barber up north in Vermont had something like that. And they got the old like nostalgic like historical little pieces of furniture and posters and stuff like that. And that's the type of desk I'm talking about that you would have in there. And it kind of makes sense, because I don't know where this desk ever came from before it was in my possession. I'm pretty sure my mom had it, and I don't know how far back it goes before that. But it's like just the style and also the color. It's like I don't know what kind of shade of green it is, like a mint green. It's a very like light green. Like maybe a green stick of like spearmint gum or something. And it looks like it belongs in a barbershop. So if there are any barbers out there listening to this, make an offer and I'll sell it to you in your shop. So like I mentioned at the top of the podcast, I really want to take the level of this podcast up. So I was talking about having guests on it, and I'm thinking of also, maybe some segments to do either with guests or without. My brother and I were watching something the other day, this segment of like trying out different foods or something like that, and I was like, oh, that actually could be a fun idea. That would be a cool thing to do. So I think on this episode, I'll look into the other platforms that this is on, but I know on Spotify I can put like a Q&A or a poll or something like that. And I'm interested to hear from those of you listening out there. You can comment on YouTube as well, like what types of segments or things you'd like to see, maybe see on this show. Not necessarily specific topics. Those specific topics and questions and stuff like that are kind of reserved for the patrons on the Patreon. But there's a chance for anybody listening out there to maybe suggest some segments, some structured segments or things to talk about on this show that you think might be an entertaining thing to bring back. Something where the subject matter can be changed from time to time. Like my brother and I were talking about, we watched this show, this YouTube show, Good Mythical Morning, and they did a taste test of like a bunch of different Pringles flavors and like rated them and stuff like that. And he said, oh, we should do that sometime. And when he said that, I said, oh, we should do that sometime and maybe record it for a podcast episode or something like that. So maybe that's something I'll do. I was going to record this episode last night, and I just got to be kind of too late and stuff like that. But if I would have recorded it, I think the dryer, because we had clothes in the dryer, I think the dryer would have finished while I was in here, and I would have had to go get it. Dude, that dryer, I love the dryer. It like sings to you when it finishes up, and I don't mean like a little like ding, like the wash is done, not like a like the annoying buzzer that you would get. I mean this dryer legit like sings a whole jingle to you that's like 30 seconds long or something, because it's a Samsung and it's made by the Japanese, and that is the most Japanese thing ever. And that is another reason why I love Japan. Is Alabama, you make friends with like strangers and the guy who helped you get a loan for your house, and in Japan you make friends with your appliances. It's pretty cool. But well, that's gonna bring us to about 30 minutes for this episode, and hopefully it turned out pretty well. Like I said, a little bit more off script this time, not a whole lineup of things ahead of time like I had last time. I had stories lined up, but I just kind of figured I'd go with winging it a little bit, and there's going to be more ums and and stuff, the types of things that I cut out a lot from the first episode, because we're starting to get more comfortable, we're starting to get more real, and there's going to be some times of dead air where I was Googling that message in a bottle thing to find out that it's just, people found messages in a bottle, and I wasn't going to spend 10 minutes researching it because there's not that much time in this episode. And I just, like I said, I just hit something on my desk and it probably picked it up in the microphone because there's not that much room in here. But that's all part of the experience. So that'll do it for this episode of the Jabbering Jake Podcast. Again, if you have any ideas for a segment that maybe you'd like to hear or see on this podcast, please definitely do engage with the podcast, leave comments, answer the Q&A. If you have some way of interacting with the show on whatever platform you're listening or watching it on, please do that, and I'll try and look and see if there are some good ideas in there that I can add to the show, whether it's something that happens every episode or every once in a while. And also, please share the podcast with other people. Tell them about it. If you think they'd be interested or you're not sure or something, just, spread the word. We want this podcast to grow. A little presumptuous to say we. I mean, I definitely do. I'm having fun with it, and I definitely want to keep doing it. And not to say that I'll stop if I don't get a big enough audience, but it definitely helps to see something that you care about start to grow and flourish. But for those of you out there already listening, thank you for the support. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.